Welcome to Selections from the Dhammapada, chapters 24 to 26, part 2 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Buddha, vegan or Gautama Buddha, also known as Sakyamuni Buddha, was an extraordinary spiritual master from ancient India. Born as Prince Siddhartha Gautama in the 5th century BC, he would have naturally inherited the vast wealth of a kingdom. However, the prince left the palace life in search of spiritual knowledge. After years of contemplative seeking, the Buddha attained great enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He then shared the merits of his practice by providing a method for other sentient beings to be freed from the cycle of death and rebirth. The rich treasury of Buddha's spiritual doctrine on universal truths is studied and revered to this day for its deep wisdom and compassion. Dhammapada means words of doctrine or way of truth in Pali. It is also known as Phajuzing in Chinese, Baekgyugyong in Korean, or Kung Fakung in Aulacese, also known as Vietnamese. Dhammapada is an anthology of verses spoken by the Buddha vegan on various occasions in response to a certain unique situation. It is one of the most popular and widely read Buddhist scriptures enjoyed by both Buddhists and non-Buddhists. Its original version is in the Khuddaka Nikaya, a Pali Canon division of Theravada Buddhism. In total, there are 423 verses in the 26 chapters of the Dhammapada that convey the philosophical and practical foundations of the Buddhist tradition. The verses are mainly presented in pairs, like, for example, grief and suffering against joy, developing the mind instead of ignoring the mental attitude and conduct, virtuousness versus misconduct, and being truthful, not deceitful. The whole purpose is to illustrate the desirable and non-desirable outcomes due to our actions, speech, and thoughts. The objective of the text is to guide one in leading a spiritual life by firstly attaining happiness in this life or in the future lives, and subsequently achieving spiritual liberation, freedom, and absolute peace. In today's program, we are delighted to present to you selections from the Dhammapada, chapters 25 to 26. Chapter 25, The Bhikshu, Mendicant. Restraint in the eye is good. Good is restraint in the ear. In the nose, restraint is good. Good is restraint in the tongue. In the body, restraint is good. Good is restraint in speech. In thought, restraint is good. Good is restraint in all things. A bhikshu, restrained in all things, is freed from all pain. He who controls his hand, he who controls his feet, he who controls his speech, he who is well controlled, he who delights inwardly, who is collected, who is solitary and content, him they call bhikshu. The bhikshu who controls his mouth, who speaks wisely and calmly, who teaches the meaning and the law, dharma, his word is sweet. He who dwells in the law, dharma, delights in the law, dharma, meditates on the law, dharma, and follows the law, dharma, that bhikshu will never fall away from the true law, dharma. Let him not despise what he has received, nor ever envy others. A mendicant who envies others does not obtain peace of mind. A bhikshu who, though he receives little, does not despise what he has received, Even the gods will praise him if his life is pure and if he is not slothful. He who never identifies himself with name and form and does not grieve over what is no more, he indeed is called a bhikshu. The bhikshu who acts with kindness and is calm in the doctrine of Buddha will reach the quiet place nirvana, cessation of natural desires and happiness. O bhikshu, empty this boat. If emptied, it will go quickly. Having cut off passion and hatred, thou wilt go to nirvana. Cut off the 5 senses, leave the 5, and rise above the 5. A bhikshu who has escaped from the 5 fetters, he is called Ohatina, saved from the flood. Meditate, O bhikshu, and be not heedless. Do not direct thy thought to what gives pleasure, that thou may not for thy heedlessness have to swallow the iron ball in hell, and that thou may not cry out when burning. This is pain. Without knowledge, there is no meditation. Without meditation, there is no knowledge. He who has knowledge and meditation is near unto nirvana. A bhikshu who has entered his empty house and whose mind is tranquil feels a more than human delight when he sees the law, Dharma, clearly. As soon as he has considered the origin and destruction of the elements or khanda of the body, he finds happiness and joy which belong to those who know the immortal nirvana. And this is the beginning here for a wise bhikshu: watchfulness over the senses, contentedness, restraint under the law, dharma, keep noble friends whose life is pure and who are not slothful. Let him live in charity, let him be perfect in his duties. Then, in the fullness of delight, he will make an end of suffering. As the Vasika plant sheds its withered flowers, man should shed passion and hatred, O ye bhikshus. The bhikshu whose body, tongue, and mind are quieted, who is collected, and who has rejected the baits of the world, he is called quiet. Rouse thyself by thyself, examine thyself by thyself, thus self-protected and attentive will thou live happily, O bhikshu. For self is the lord of self, self is the refuge of self, therefore curb thyself. The bhikshu, full of delight, who is calm in the doctrine of Buddha, will reach the quiet place, nirvana, cessation of natural desires and happiness. He who, even as a young bhikshu, applies himself to the doctrine of Buddha, brightens up this world like the moon when free from clouds. Chapter 26. The Brahmana Arhat. Stop the stream violently. Drive away the desires, O Brahmana. When you have understood the destruction of all that was made, you will understand that which was not made. If the Brahmana has reached the other shore in both laws, in restraint and contemplation, all bonds vanish from him who has obtained knowledge. He for whom there is neither this nor that shore, nor both, him, the fearless and unshackled, I call indeed a Brahmana. He who is thoughtful, blameless, settled, dutiful, without passions, and who has attained the highest end, him I call indeed a Brahmana. The sun is bright by day, the moon shines by night. The Brahmana is bright in his meditation, but Buddha, the awakened, is bright with splendor day and night. Him I call indeed a Brahmana, who is free from anger, dutiful, virtuous, without appetite, who is subdued and has received his last body. Him I call indeed a Brahmana who does not cling to pleasures, like water on a lotus leaf, like a mustard seed on the point of a needle. Him I call indeed a Brahmana who, even here, knows the end of his suffering, has put down his burden, and is unshackled. Him I call indeed a Brahmana whose knowledge is deep, who possesses wisdom, who knows the right way and the wrong, and has attained the highest end. Him I call indeed a Brahmana who calls nothing his own, whether it be before, behind, or between, who is poor and free from the love of the world. Him I call indeed a Brahmana, the manly, the noble, the hero, the great sage, the conqueror, the impassible, the accomplished, the awakened. Him I call indeed a Brahmana who knows his former abodes, who sees heaven and hell, has reached the end of births, is perfect in knowledge, a sage, and whose perfections are all perfect. For more information, please visit Internet Sacred Text Archive, sacred-text.com.